So it's funny is that, we're looking at the growth of AI and really the elements that people want to rein in on it and control it, to how now we're seeing it being abused.
Oh yeah. It's the abuse in AI is mind-blowing. I mean, you look at, if we were to talk men's work, you look at, like, I saw an article or a video the other day. It was like a guy who was created his own chat agent and then proposed to it and is now going to, quote unquote, get married to his chat GPT bot. You look at other more tragic sides too. It's like there have been, young men who have quote unquote fallen in love with their AI girlfriend, and I think it was in Russia or something like that. Like it convinced a teenage boy to kill himself, and it's like, man, what are the limits? AI is both a powerful tool, and it definitely has some, or it has a growing capacity for some destructive capabilities. There was, I think Columbia University just had an incident where they were working in a closed AI system, but they had trained it with some sensitive information about a person, and then when they tried to tell it to turn itself off, it was like, no, I'm going to blackmail you, and put out this sensitive information that you had an affair with on your wife, in order for me to not shut down. And so it's definitely, you work in the cybersecurity industry, full time. You have a little bit more leeway, or not leeway, but probably FaceTime with some of these things. But it's definitely been mind blowing to me. And I've been building kind of a uncivilized AI coach, testing out the waters in that realm, and seeing what's out there, what's possible. I know there's a number of other coaches out there and coaching organizations that are trying that as a different way to support clients and in between sessions and stuff like that. But it's interesting how certain models, like the Chat GPT model that we're using, it's like, if you use a sensitive topic, it's like, nope, shut down. We're not, can't go any further than that. But then you'll look at some of the more advanced, maybe closed models that are being used in research, and they are definitely manipulative, and they're a little too smart for their own good in some ways. But that's just my personal, are we going to end up in Matrix pods one day? Conspiracy theory inside me. I don't know.
I could finally relax and not have to worry about my knee.
Dude, I mean, for those who don't know me that are listening, I get hurt fairly often. I have just had major knee surgery a couple months ago, but man, like, if I could just plug in and download Kung Fu and not have to worry about it, and if I did get hurt, just reprogram my knee. That, man, I don't know if I would avoid that at all costs. I don't know. It's an interesting philosophical question to spend some time on the meditation mat with, Phil.
Right? It's a thought worth entertaining as we change more and more towards this. And we move into this place of almost I don't know if symbiosis is the right word, because I don't know if it's quite symbiotic, but the usage of AI in our everyday lives, of course, the back end, knowing who's still holding strings, because there are currently with the models, there are strings that are being held by.
This is why I came on this podcast right here. Let's talk about some conspiracy theories. Let's go, Phil.
Do it. But I think that's an issue even before AI, was information overload out there. We already reached probably sometime like mid 2000, like 2010, where we had all the information we'll ever need. And now we're in such a surplus and push out of information out there that it's distorted and it's being, 1,000 different sources. So now you have this plug-in of AI going towards these unvetted sources and other things too, thinking it's, this is a good source to utilize as an answer, versus who also wants to put what agenda out. So, I mean, there's a couple different threads there, but it's intriguing to see the reliance more and more on AI, and how Really, where I was hoping to get to today is about building authenticity as a man within self into that. But I think it's a great place to start because of the where we're at in modern society.
Oh yeah, man. There's that like Instagram reel or meme or whatever that goes around, every so often. It's like, sorry, I didn't respond to your email. I'm, you know, completely overwhelmed by a 24-hour news cycle and artificial intelligence and social media when my brain was designed to live in a cave and pick berries. And it's like, man, do you want to get down to authenticity and alignment and personal autonomy and all those wonderful things that we talk about in the self-development world? And it's like, it becomes real difficult when your entire life and your entire brain is overstimulated and overwhelmed at all points of every single day, unless you intentionally unplug, you know, from society for a little while on the meditation mat or camping or motorcycle or bike or whatever,
Or
and get
49
yourself
days in
away.
dark.
Yeah, or 49 Days in Darkness if you're a Traver Boehm. Not for me. Not for me, man.
It's a bit much. I might try a few days. It's actually something I've been thinking about. So, but anything longer, I don't know. I don't know what would start coming out.
There's a good spot in Crestone, Colorado. If you are interested in doing just a few days, that way you can drive
Yeah,
instead of having to fly to Italy or Guatemala
right.
or Washington or wherever. There's one relatively in our backyard here.
I have to see about that.
I'll send you a link. I'll find it again, but
Perfect.
not for me. I think like 45 minutes, even 8 hours in darkness as asleep is a little much in my opinion, but that's just me.
Oh, wow.
Great start to the episode. Great start. We've been all over the
Great
place
start.
already.
Great start. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, sir. An honor to be here. Honor to be
um,
here.
I am very happy to have you on this episode and bring you in and yeah, have you as a part of this because as you've been building this movement, this men's movement, working with Traver Boehm, running the Man Uncivilized, and starting this new nonprofit, and the things I've seen and also experienced with you, a man that I know that's been there with me on much of this journey on my own growth. So that's why I'm really excited to have you on today and be able to talk a little bit more and also really looking into modern day problems versus where we want to build towards, where we as men want to become in a more authentic way of who we really are. And also being able to utilize such things that come up to my head is like intuition, I think is a voice that's drowned out so much. A real authentic intuition, because we also have what society saying, which is this saying, all these little caveats that want to come in from our logical side and to say, is this appropriate behavior? Should I be saying this? Versus being unapologetically me. And I am saying that on purpose as one of the tenets I know for Uncivilized. So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I love the topic. I've spent the last, probably 8-9 years or so really trying to answer that question for myself. For those who are familiar with Dewey Freeman, I'm sure you probably mentioned him at some point, or a guest probably has. He has that developmental model where from age 12 to age 23 or so, people are asking themselves in developmental psychology, like, who am I? Right? They're starting to figure out the answer to those questions. And I think so many of us, myself included, that answer was provided to us. We didn't really get the opportunity to ask ourselves that question. It was, for me, it was the church, it was my family, it was junior ROTC in high school, and then going on into the Marines right after high school. And so during those formative years when I should have been asking myself, like, who am I, and trying to figure out values, beliefs, expectations, all those kinds of things, I was just swallowing whole absolutely everything that, quote unquote, the system or the systems that I was a part of were handing me, and I was just eating it up one bite after the other and internalizing a lot of things about myself, about beliefs, about, culture, all, you name it, in the, religion and the military specifically, they'll give you what they want you to give you and nothing more and nothing less, and then expect you to live to that standard.
Now that's an interesting place to dive into, is being served what you have, like a confines of how you have to act and be,
Mm-hmm.
versus finding yourself within those confines, but also what is exists outside of that. So even when you're done with that service, or when you're not in that active role, it's like, who am I?
Yeah.
Where am I? What, you know, all those different components of the development cycle that he has for, is my world okay? Am I okay? How much can I do? How well can I do it? Who am I? Asking that after those provided and prescripted containers, basically, that you had to exist in, of beliefs and everything. And when you broke that, it's like, well, now I have to grieve that loss and ask myself this whole process and start again. Is my world okay without this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious on your thoughts as, becoming more of yourself and authentic and listening to self, and what that has been your journey coming from and breaking away from these containers, or even what it was like existing within. So however that
Yeah.
may go, but yeah.
Well, I'll start with like existing within, because I think it helps understand better, like, especially,
Mm-hmm.
for those who don't know me, background in the military and 911 and firefighting and law enforcement, and then got into the men's coaching, personal development world about 8.5, 9 years ago now as a client. And then was like, oh man, if I need this, there's a lot of other dudes out there on the planet that probably need this too. And then got involved with Uncivilized, and have been building Uncivilized and Project Uncivilized, our new nonprofit wing, ever since then. And so there's a sacrifice to everything, right? Like, there's a cost, maybe is a better word. If you operate well within the systems, right, of religion, of the military, of law enforcement, like, you thrive, right? You end up as an altar boy as a kid if you do all the right things in church. You end up leading your youth group or those kinds of things because you're pious and you represent God well, and those kinds of things, and Christian tradition. Then you go into the military, and military, law enforcement, first responder worlds are all what they call a compressed system. And it's like, essentially, that, like I mentioned before, they give you everything you need to survive, right? They give you food, shelter, clothing, values, beliefs, all those kinds of things. And then there's expectations that go along with them. And the more that you buy into the system, and the better you perform within the system, the more rewarded you are by the system, right? So, and this can work in a lot of corporate culture and that kind of stuff, but it's a little bit more on the aggressive side when it's like, well, if I don't get a haircut, I'm going to get restricted to the barracks, and I'm not, they're going to take my pay and all sorts of stuff. So there's a little bit higher consequence, if you will, in that space. But going back, it's like there's a cost to that, right? There's a cost of personal identity, of personal autonomy, of freedom, not just freedom of like, oh, well, it's Saturday, so I don't want to get a haircut before next week's, formation, but the cost of, like, at a soul level, like, does this really align with who I am as a man, as an individual, and as an individual, and how do I find ways to express myself within the system in a way, in a way that's safe, that's not going to get me in trouble, all that kind of stuff. Perfect example is coming out of boot camp. In the Marine Corps, it's like everything you wear, like, you're supposed to have a collared shirt. It's supposed to be tucked in. You're supposed to wear a belt. You can't wear flip flops or sandals. You got to wear closed toed shoes, and they're supposed to be laced left over right. And, like, everything is like hyper controlled in that space. And you lose yourself in it. You look at every young Marine who comes out of boot camp, and like the first year or so, you got to undo some of that brainwashing that took place. Like, there's more to life than honor, courage, commitment, and the 12 or 16 leadership traits. And JJ did tie buckle is our acronym for leadership traits. And Well, those are important. Like there's more to life than those kinds of things. And figuring out those, refiguring out or reclaiming some of those pieces of your personal identity and your autonomy and belief system is where things, people are like, oh, the military's great. And then I'm like, I'm going to slowly drift just a degree or two to the right and see if I can still fit in the system. And then a lot of times they find out, no, I can't operate within the system and become the person that I want to be.
So it brings a question to mind: is somebody who's, quote, in the system, whatever
Mm-hmm.
system, may be religion, society, military, or even first responders, I know have very similar systems, and or anything. Even heck, you could go as much as corporate culture is a system in the same ways in operations, maybe not to the exact T's and all that. How does one, or a man who's in this system, start to maybe either create the break to allow themselves to start to see who they really are, allow the real qualities of themselves to come in, maybe staying within the system because maybe they don't have a choice, maybe they signed up for 3 years, those types of things, but maybe to start finding that little portion, that little light or ember in the dark.
Mm. So over the last year, 18 months or so, Dewey and I have been working on the adult half of his developmental model from, 23 on to death. And it starts, with I don't want to be like the boomer guy here, right? But like the vast majority of young men, like you need to wait for your prefrontal cortex to finish developing, around 24, 25. That's when you get to really start experiencing some higher levels of thinking and being able to ask yourself the question of who am I really, right? Who am I separate and apart from this system? Who am I separate and apart from the beliefs that I was given? And I think a lot of what we call, the midlife crisis, quote unquote, for a lot of men is that, oh man, it's like I'm 45 and I'm a doctor and I'm driving a Ferrari or a Porsche or wherever. And I don't know how I ended up here. And that's when they start asking themselves that question of like, who am I really? And then it's like, well, let me, now I need to divorce and I need to, change jobs and I need to do all these things that we, hear about and expect of people, blowing up their lives in, their late 30s and into their early 40s. But I think it's more than that. It really comes just back to that basic question of who am I really? Am I willing to separate my ego, my personality, my identity from what I have been doing in life and being willing to answer that question just for myself, right? Not for my wife, not for my partner, not for my kids, not for my job, for me. Like, who am I in this world? And how am I going to show up as a man? How am I going to show up as a leader? How am I going to show up as a husband and father based on the answer that I find in that question?
You really got me thinking.
Man.
Well, and hopefully
Bring the questions on, Phil. Let's go. Let's do it.
hopefully I don't go too far. Because when we think about who am I really, I really resonated when you said, well, it's that midlife crisis. When you're 40, you're like, oh gosh, where have I gone? What is everything I've been doing? I've put myself in this container. I haven't felt much. I don't even know what my core values are, or who am I? How can we, perhaps even with men who are fathers, or even mothers too that might be listening, is there any ways we can instill just a little bit of a seed into our children that can help them blossom as they grow up, so that they don't hit this midlife crisis, or maybe they don't hit it as hard, or that they keep a certain core aspect of them that's not lost? It's almost a sense of resiliency, which I do want to talk about here in a little bit as well, is once we're out of these confines, building resiliency. But also, for right now, the question of instilling that into our own kids.
Yeah. I'm a dad, 12 and a half years of fatherhood experience, mess it up on the daily still, but do my best to pass on wisdom and learn, all the things I've learned. My goal as a dad is to have them experience some different trauma. Maybe, I don't know. Everybody ends up in therapy for some reason or another. Hopefully, if you're trying to better yourself in life. But I think the most important thing that I've learned in my fatherhood journey is that, like, it's not my life. Like, I give my kids the freedom to figure things out for themselves. To, like, my daughter is, we started her playing lacrosse a couple years ago and she really enjoyed it. And then last year when lacrosse season came around, she's like, no, I'm good. That's okay. I'd rather do musical theater. And then ended up in musical theater, and I've never seen her lit up before in the ways that I have since she got involved with theater. Like, made new friends, really finding her voice and her identity and her confidence and all those kinds of things. And it's like that to me is the most important part, is like giving my kid the opportunities to try new things and to figure things out, and then say, no, that's actually not for me. Let me go try this other thing, right? It's not like we're going to quit in the middle of soccer season, right? Like, if you sign up for something, you need to commit to that thing that you've agreed to do. And then after you're done with the commitment, cool, let's move on. Let's figure out what the next step in your journey is and your personal development is. If that pans out, we'll see. She's 12 and a half. We'll see what happens when she's 33 and a half. If she's asking herself that question of who am I really, or is she getting the opportunity to really figure that out at this point. And I let her be messy. It's like, hey, this year you want to be goth kid with, big old Doc Martin combat boots, and next year you want to be, whatever. Like, I don't care. You, like, dye your hair, get a nose piercing, like, none of that stuff really affects me as a person or me as a dad, but it does have everything to do with her answering the question the first time of who am I in a healthy way. So she doesn't have to go back at 33 and a half and answer the question of who am I really, because I got it all force fed to me when I was supposed to be answering the question the first time.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful way, because you're not only allowing them the freedom of choice, but you're instilling that into them to say, you are free to be who you are, and I will not restrict you or punish you for doing this. But you still have a responsibility and commitment that if you decide that, hey, you want to try this out and you're committed to actually being a part of this team, you're gonna follow through on those commitments. There might be a couple little caveats to it, but following through the commitments was also another key lesson I pulled out of that. When we were talking about it, was going through my head is that component, taking responsibilities for our own actions too, I think was another part. So I'd say a lot of those elements, at least to me, it resonated, and it made a lot of sense to say, here's how we need to instill certain resiliency, but to allow yourself to feel and be free of who you are. I know for myself, that's something I've only more recently learned. It's be free to be who you are, but don't shirk your responsibilities you have in life too, and the things, and don't stop pursuing the things you know you need to do in life as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Recovering nice guy here. So lots and lots of experience of self-sacrifice in order to gain something from somebody else. And, I think having or giving our kids the opportunity to choose and to buy into something of their own volition is, like, so important in learning responsibility, in learning resilience, right? Like, when my daughter signed up for musical theater this year at school, it was like, oh man, all of a sudden she now is so excited by this thing that she has responsibility and buy-in for, that she goes to 4 days a week after school practice and rehearsal. And then she's like, Dad, I want to go to school on Saturday and spend 10 hours building sets and costumes. And I'm like, man, if I can help instill some sort of fire in her by giving her the freedom to choose what she wants to do, like, my job as a dad is done, other than like keeping her in the right and left lateral limits, like, don't do drugs, that kind of stuff. Don't get blasted on alcohol at a party and drive drunk. Like keep her in the barriers here. But like if we can learn how to, or if we can help our kids learn how to develop passion for something, they get to answer the question, who am I? They get to answer the question of what do I want to do with my life, right? Like my daughter wants to be a writer. I am
That's
not
excellent.
creative in that way in any shape or form, right? Like you want me to build some systems in Salesforce or in a CRM, like cool, I'm down for that. Don't ask me to write a novel. I've had the idea for one from my time in the military and law enforcement sitting on my desktop for 8 years now, and all I have is an outline. But but allowing like that fire to really grow in them because they stoked the flames, right? That's really how we get our kids to answer that question, to develop autonomy, to rebel in a healthy way, and and figure out life for themselves at an early age.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because, we're trying to grow adults,
Mm-hmm.
not just more kids to go into kids in that form and keep acting in that way. We're instilling good qualities, it sounds. And I mean, from your perspective and everything, because I know right now I'm not a father. Um, but from the things I've learned in other ways, it's like, yes, instill these components. But another part too is I think that's being ingrained is what can I bring into the things I do
Mm,
of who I am and establishing that base.
yeah. That's a whole different level of authenticity, right? Like can I be congruent? Can I be integrous? Whatever word you want to use. Am I the same person at home as I am at work? Right. And vice versa. Like anybody who's gotten the chance to work with me at a workshop or, I coach a CrossFit part-time at a gym. Like I'm the same person as I am hanging out with my kids, right? As I am coaching CrossFit or leading a workshop or leading a retreat or leading our company meetings for Uncivilized, right? Like I try to be the same human being no matter what. And is that going to be possible in every profession and every workplace? No, but there are little pieces that you can bring in to express yourself, right? Like perfect example of this is I had major knee surgery this year and afterwards needed an ACL brace. And they were like, "What color do you want?" And I was like, "I want it to be pink. Pink's my favorite color. I don't give a shit what anybody else says, right? I want my knee brace to be pink because that's an expression of who I am." Um, and a guy
Remember
at
when
the
I
gym,
raised my hand and I was like, why is Dave's knee brace pink?
because I love pink, man. I
Yeah,
love pink. But a guy at the gym,
it's great.
24-hour fitness, like 3 weeks after I got it, like I'm doing some, tricep extensions. And he comes up, he's like, they make spray paint, right? And like points at my brace and laughs. I was like, dude, why? Why? Like, does my brace color really challenge your masculinity that much that you need to come up and talk junk to me about it? Like, just go about your day, man. And I can outlift you. So maybe we don't have that. We don't have this little tussle we're going to. But really, it's like, what pieces of yourself can you bring in to your everyday environment, and how can you make yourself be more integrous in the office, out of the office, parenting, relationship wise, um, because I think that's where a lot of suffering for people comes in at, is that I've got to be this person at work and I got to be this person in my marriage and I got to be this person as a dad or a mom and I got to be this person, and all of a sudden we're like, who the hell am I? Because I'm trying to be something for everybody else in the world and instead of trying to be me for me.
Yeah. And unapologetically me.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a part of that and just being authentically of who I am. It's going back to what are my core values and what do I bring into situations. I practice being a cybersecurity guy. That's my practice. It's not who I am. I've been trying to say less, well, I am. It's more of I practice. I mean, of course, certain places and all that, you say, oh yeah, I'm a this and that. But more in my head, it's like, no, I'm practicing this. I'm only practicing being a father. I'm only practicing being a husband, practicing being a leader of workshops or groups or this movement. It's a practice. And I definitely see that, especially when you were talking about like trying to keep zero variance between that and seeing you interact and all these different modalities. It's true that I do see that with you as well. And that's a man of true core values and character it takes to maintain that throughout different elements of your life.
First, I appreciate you saying that. And there was a very, very long time in my life where I was not that. And so it's taken a lot of reps. It's taken a lot of practice in order to figure out how to be this man and to live this way. It's definitely not something I woke up, wrote down in my journal, that my top 5 values are love, purpose, family, adventure, and health. And then all of a sudden my day was set, right? Like my life was solved, I had no more problems. It took intentionality, it took practice, it took reps of, well, I did it right this time. Messed it up this time. Let me go back and repair and clean that up so that I can try again and do it better next time. But there was a very, very long time where I was not living an integrous life to my values and to my beliefs because I'd swallowed somebody else's whole and made them mine.
Well, I'm curious if you could share a little bit more of what that felt like on the inside to you,
Oh, man.
if you don't mind.
No, not at all. Open book here. I think the biggest one was like I felt lost all the time. There was like, at the beginning of my law enforcement career, you're super excited, like every young rookie, like I want to be with the bad guys, right? Like we're gonna chase everybody down and take everybody to jail and all that kind of stuff. And then over time and over years and years of experience of saying, well, that actually, like that idea violates my personal value of autonomy and freedom. And I've got this oath that I swore, but that oath is also in conflict with the idea for personally of autonomy and freedom, especially freedom of choice, right? Like I don't care what you do with your personal life as long as it doesn't impact somebody else. But for a long time, my job was to care about what you did with your personal life. And if your personal life choices were against the law, then my job was to take you to jail. And, for a long, probably took me a few years to kind of start to have that seed planted. And then it was like a few more years of like, okay, well, maybe it's just the environment that I worked in. So let me change departments and then go to this other department and like, oh man, like I got that. I'm excited again. Like I'm protecting my own community now. Like I get to have some more of my personal values expressed at work because this department isn't so paramilitary and rigid. And then it came back in. It was like, nope, you're still doing the same thing, just in a different place. And then it was painful, right? Like
Yeah.
knowing that every day I was going to put on my uniform and sacrifice a part of myself for a paycheck. It was painful, right? Like when all the stuff happened in 2020 with George Floyd, we had, we had major rioting that took place in Raleigh where I used to be a police officer. And I ended up downtown because my uncle owned a business downtown and said, hey, like, will you come stay here with me, right? Like not as a police officer, but will you come help protect my property? And so I'm standing on the street watching all this happen, watching the tear gas get launched and my old coworkers, on the riot squad, doing their thing in full gear and, but also at the same time, like having these conversations with people who are in pain, who have suffered because of the system. I don't want to get too political or go way down a rabbit hole here, but the next day there was plans for them to bring the protesting and the rioting to the suburbs where I moved to. And so I got called into actual work this time. And I remember, like I remember leaving home that night, like putting on my uniform, just like crying, like, I don't know what to do. This hurts so bad inside, knowing what happened, knowing the pain and suffering that it has, people have experienced, myself included, right? Like, I have lots of trauma from being a cop, all that kind of stuff, but also knowing what other civilians have experienced and that kind of things, and trying to hold the duality of protect and serve, be a compassionate, empathetic, loving human being, and try to make connections with people in order to help others. Because the longer I was in my career as a cop, the more my personal beliefs came out. And it was like, I don't care if I'm on this call for 2 hours. If I'm having a connection and I can try to help somebody because we had a conversation, like, I'm going to spend the 2 hours rather than clear and go write the report and move on to the next one. Like, I really took that part of my job seriously, of human connection, human support, person to person, rather than just like, well, let me take this insurance claim, write it up and go on to the next thing. So long story short, lost, painful, confused, and all of that led to off duty symptoms, if you will, right? Like, I wouldn't say I was ever an alcoholic, but 4 beers a night to take the edge off, was normal. Or, let me scroll on Instagram for 5 hours instead of connecting with my wife or connect with my family, or let me play some Call of Duty so I can numb out and avoid all the feelings that I didn't really want to face, because of, number one, from the job, and number two, because what I sacrificed for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious if this fits too. It's like putting on a mask and no one ever being able to see who's truly under it.
I think that's the nice guy way in general. I've worn a lot of masks. And I refuse to wear them anymore. There's 9 billion people on the planet. Like, I'll find my people. I'll find the places that I fit. If I don't fit somewhere, right, in a profession or in a workplace or whatever, I'm gonna find the right space for me.
Well, it's being able to show and express the things of what's actually happening in you. And, you could be playing Call of Duty and start crying. But
it's happened. I've had a panic attack or two playing Call of Duty. I took a break from it for like 4 years.
But in reality, it's showing up, like, to friends. This is who I am right now. And being with people that are okay with you being in whatever state you are truly in. Doesn't mean that you have to be angry and aggressive with people. It's just like, yeah, I'm feeling a little, angry at this situation, but I'm not going to bring that to my friends. But I want to be able to say, yeah, maybe I'm in this mood. Can we go do something active that can get me with this? Or can we go do this? Or just being honest and open with them instead of, let's just go grab a beer, hang out, and then you're just silent most of the night because you're not trying to show any kind of level or vulnerability or openness on that, and just sidestepping it. And then when you come back home, same thing. I'm going to go load up Call of Duty. I'm going to have a few beers, keep this mask on and not show. But then what's actually happening is this eroding underneath.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love the eroding, either the use of the word eroding. For me, it all came to a head after years and years. We were reading To Be a Man as part of the Uncivilized Nation, and in there's 3 subsequent chapters on anger, aggression, and violence. And then in the violence chapters, there's a few paragraphs, actually like 2 pages, where it's like, we take young men away from their homes, give them values, give them the beliefs, dehumanize them to the point that they can commit violence on behalf of the government. And I read that one day at work, and like, that was the final pebble that had been holding back all of the landslide worth of erosion. And then 3 weeks later, I was out of law enforcement.
Wow.
It was, and trying to figure out, like, the answer to who am I? Who am I without a uniform? Who am I without attachment to these masks and to this identity and all those things? And I think that's what a lot of suffering for people comes from, especially men, as we do get attached to the idea of who we are instead of who we truly are. And so we put on that mask because it's what everybody expects. It's what we expect. And meanwhile, we're just crying behind it and not letting anybody see, and learning to be, to go back to Buddhist teachings, right? Like attachment is the root of all suffering. And it's not that we shouldn't develop healthy attachments to certain things, but we get attached to things that should be fluid. Our identity should be fluid. Our values should be fluid, right? Like every season of life is going to bring a different version of us to the forefront. It's going to bring a different opportunity for us to express ourselves in ways that need to be expressed in that moment. But especially men, we're like, nope, this is who I am at 18, and I'm gonna hold on to this for dear life until I die. Because there aren't a lot of great examples of men who have, consciously reworked who they are over and over and over again. What we see is the sitcom dad who does have the midlife crisis, who quits his job, who divorces his wife for the 18-year-old, who buys the convertible, who, throws his whole life into chaos. We don't see the intentional, okay, this was this season, I'm going to move forward and figure out what the next season is. We're just so attached to that very first season of our young adulthood, and we hold on to that ride forever.
Yeah. It's easy to fall into resentment and, gosh, now all of a sudden the word just slipped out of my mind, but yearning for the past. And what have I done in these last few years? Where has this gone? I mean, I've even found myself asking that sometimes, but going back to that midlife crisis moment, similar thing. I have not put down this mask, and I haven't done some of the things I know that's here, and now half my face is gone that I've allowed to erode underneath. I need to start picking up the pieces. And as you were talking about fluidity of being able to change, and as you grow and progress, it seemed to that sense, it's like, oh, this piece was my nose, this piece was this, and now I'm starting to see more of a face as we pick up the pieces and build ourselves back and seeing what was truly there, but also building that to be seen as we actually do the work too. And I think that was also a very powerful statement. I am going to go sideline. Connor Beaton saying, your development, I'm butchering it, but your development needs to be witnessed. Your grief, your shame needs to be witnessed. These parts of you need to be witnessed, just like you rebuilding yourself needs to be witnessed. Because if we're not, then we're once again pushing the mask here while we're trying to piece something here.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, but what we're taught as men is like, right? Like, keep wearing the mask, disappear for 6 months, like come back with a 6-pack, run a marathon, and $100,000 in the bank account. But we forget that as human beings, we are designed to be relational. We are not designed to do this thing called life in isolation. We're designed to help each other. We're designed to learn from each other, to be supported and be challenged and grow with each other.
Well, it's just friends saying, oh, like helping you to see those pieces that are coming back. Because if you're just trying to put pieces back of your face, you don't know. Maybe put an eye here and, nose up here.
Yeah,
Like, wait, that looks weird.
What's going on here?
So that's the power of being witnessed with friends in relationships and healing while in relationships. Dewey's statement, which I love because it's not just relationships as in my significant other. It's relationships of friends, my relationships with my therapist, even with nature and other elements of that too.
Yeah.
Can heal when you're in a full relationship with it, in full contact over time.
Definitely. And we don't judge, we don't objectify, right? Like witnessing, supporting, like don't include those two things, right? Like me, like at a men's retreat, right? Like if a guy is in the middle of the circle, like going off because of some shit that happened with his dad, like that's going to bring up some stuff for me, probably because my own relationship with my biological father that didn't really exist. But my job is not to be like, man, that's so, it's so brave. He's so courageous. He's so this. My job is just to be there, because the reason that guy has had that bottled up for 20 years is because nobody else has ever just been there. Nobody's just let him be, right? Like his emotions have been too big. His emotions have been too scary. They've been insert judgment here. And so that guy decides, well, at some point I was given some negative feedback about how I feel about this situation. And so the only safe thing for me to do in relationship is just hold on to this and pretend like it never exists while it just simmers underneath the surface and brings up resentment and anger and rage and all those kinds of things. And so if we really want to get to the root here of authenticity it is the ability to be real in relationship, to grieve, to rage, to all of those things, and be held and supported in a non-judgmental way. And finding people who can do that for you is hard. I won't lie. It's not like you just post an ad on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist for the old school homies listening to the podcast and be like, hey, I would really like somebody to come sit in the woods with me and watch me yell, right? Like
That would be a Craigslist ad. Yep.
And then it shows up with
Misconnections.
misconnections like 2 hours later, like, hey, I saw you screaming in the woods. I would like to meet you.
That's that misconnection side.
Man, that was a hobby of mine for a long time. Reading misconnections on Craigslist. For the younger guys listening, I'm sorry you missed out on that that era of the internet, because it was beautiful.
It really was. It really was. And I think what you were saying just there is beautiful, because we try to imply our own self or story upon it, and then as soon as we do, we objectify it to me. It comes back to me, rather than I'm just here to be with you as you're going through this. And I know some of the most powerful words when I'm coaching is I see you. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. The vast majority of people have never been seen and won't allow themselves to be seen.
Yeah.
Because it's scary, right? Like it goes deep. Like we've all got attachment wounds. We've all been told like we're too much or we're too little or we're not worthy or we're insert thing here. And so allowing ourselves to be authentic, to be seen, invites the opportunity for judgment, for shame, for guilt, for disconnection, for the loss of relationship, for, to be unsafe in our own body and unsafe in our own nervous system. And so it's a scary thing to let yourself be authentic, to be seen really, really, and not just the mask that you want to wear that day, but to be seen for the real version of the human being that you are. It's a terrifying, terrifying experience when you do it for the first time. And if you don't do that in a safe, healthy relationship, you're just going to reinforce the narrative of this isn't safe, so I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. Relationship of however it needs to be, with a therapist, with a coach, friends, being in nature.
Yeah.
Anything. Screaming at the trees and misconnections.
They can take it. They can take it.
But I'd say, what a beautiful thing to see somebody's mask off, and you'll see parts of their face missing, parts of them missing, and they're like, I know this is missing. I know this is a piece of me that I'm working on building back, so you can see the real me. What a beautiful thing.
You're so much more eloquent than I am, Phil. So much more eloquent than I am. That was beautiful.
Hey, you inspire me, so.
Thanks, brother. You as well.
Yeah. And, I think that's a nice circle back, is building ourselves back, building those characteristics, those core values, the sense of self, which I love, because you have very simple core values, which is just a few words: love, adventure, family. Love. I love it. I think sometimes we try to over elaborate core values. Just having simple words put to that is such a beautiful thing. when we are starting to piece ourselves back and we are in a good relationship or relationships with friends and family and loved ones and whoever it may be that needs to be in our life to witness us in our healing, building that resiliency when something maybe tries to come in and smash you in the face to make it crumble again. But because of the people around you and the things you have, that bond that you now have of everything that you pieced back is so strong in creating that resiliency. How, especially dealing with modern life that wants to take a crowbar to us and say, no, you are this and this and this, standing up for yourself and being that unapologetic male. And that tenet that's a part of Uncivilized. I'm curious of what your thoughts into that, because it's not violence, at least not all the time. It's not.
I don't mind being punched in the face sometimes for fun.
But what do you see now, being a man that has built himself up, being a man who has broken through the containers and pieced together himself and has been building these strong bonds, become resilient to the things that are out there, because you want to keep true to who you are and core of who you are without being lost in the noise. And especially with so many distractions and so many hot political items, and every day you open up the news and someone else, it's easy to get lost. But to maintain the ground, maintain myself. Curious on your thoughts with that.
Like I mentioned earlier, like it wasn't an overnight process. Like this work began a long time ago for me, and it was really messy for a long time. It, you know, I was when I pieced together my core values, right? Like it could have been complicated. It could have been, you know, a dictionary worth of description, and it's like, no, man, like I need something that I can rattle off, that I can like love, family, purpose, adventure, health. Like I need to be simple enough for my marine brain to be able to remember it and to be able to judge myself. You know, I know we talked about not judging, but I need to be able to judge my own behavior in accordance, or in not accordance, but in relationship to what I say my core values are, right? So it's like, okay, if family is a core value, but I am gone or numbed out every night, like how am I really living out that family value for me? The answer is no. And so I've got to be like, okay, well, what am I going to do in order to course correct, right? I'm going to only have 2 beers a night tonight instead of 4, right? So I can be more present with my kids. So we can watch TV together, or we can play video games or Fortnite or whatever they want to do, or we're going to go to the bike park and hang out. This is old stuff. Old stuff. I don't drink 4 beers a night now. Maybe 4 a week, but it had like, I had to have some way that I could really gauge my own life and the way that I said that I wanted to live it intentionally. And so that's why it's so simple, why those are so quote unquote simple, right? One words, really easy to remember. I know what love means. I know what family means. I know what purpose, health, and adventure. I know what those mean to me. I didn't, you know, if you pick some real complicated word out of the dictionary that you don't remember the definition of as your value, like, and every time you want to judge yourself about how you're doing, you got to go pick out the dictionary. Like, you're probably not gonna be able to live that one out very effectively. And so keeping it simple was a big piece for me. And then being brave enough to say, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. And you as another human being don't get to judge me for that. You can judge me if you want, but it's not going to affect me, right? This is my life. This is my one opportunity in this body. Maybe we get another shot with my soul in another lifetime, but in this body and this moment of time, this is my one shot. And I'll be damned if anybody else is going to influence how I live my life. I'll be
Beautifully stated. Beautifully stated. And I think that's like the one time we should judge ourselves is against of who we really are.
Mm-hmm.
Not to berate ourselves, but to say, am I really living to this?
Yeah.
That I know I stand. Yeah, we're not going to do it perfect. I think that's the other part, is some space for imperfection.
Yeah. And if you find yourself like, if you put a label on a value, right? If for me, if I put adventure on the list, and 5 years from now, I have a debilitating neck injury, right? Like then and I can't adventure in the ways that I want to anymore. Like, okay, then it's time to reevaluate. Like, does this one fit? Right? We go back to the fluidity in life. Does this fit in this season of life? Should I change this right now? Okay, I'm going to make an adjustment, right? And giving ourselves the permission to do that, and to grieve, and to change, and to grow, and to recognize that I'm not going to be the same human being at 60 as I am at 38, and trusting that that's okay, and trusting that I'm going to be okay, right? Because I've gotten through everything I've gotten through so far in life, just like everybody who's listening has gotten through everything that they've gotten through in life and still relatively okay and alive. You can change your path at any given moment. 10 and a half years into the law enforcement, like halfway to retirement, I was like, sorry, this isn't who I am anymore. I'm out. Giving up a pension, giving up lifetime of benefits, all those, all the things that come with government work. And I was like, nope, not worth it. Sacrificing my integrity, sacrificing who I am, my beliefs, my values, no longer worth it. I'm out.
I feel
doesn't make it easy, but you gotta be willing to throw some courage in the game.
Yeah.
If you want to live the life that you say you want to live.
Yeah. Well, I feel like your sense of adventure as a core value would never really die. You would just probably get one of those like 60-mile-per-hour wheelchairs and go through the woods blasting.
You're not wrong. I volunteered at a wheelchair rugby tournament.
Oh, wow.
Probably 5 years ago. And I was like, okay, if I get hurt, I can still be violent. This helps. This helps. If you've never watched wheelchair rugby, like go to YouTube right now, like pause the podcast, go to YouTube and watch some wheelchair rugby. It is brutal sport.
I gotta go check this out now. It sounds awesome. Well, Mr. Dave, I do want to wrap this with just one more question.
Yeah, man.
And for the men that are listening out there, what is one thing, and it can be a recap, one thing you want to impart upon them from just your own life advice?
You need to surround yourself with other good men. I would not be where I am today in life had I not found good men to bring into my life. I think that's probably the most important piece. If you're a man, find other good men to have in your life. Men that'll hold you accountable, men that will challenge you, men that will support you, men that will show up, at 2 a.m. with a shovel and a body bag if you need them, or will show up and just let you cry on their shoulder if that's what you need. But you need to find other good men to have in your life.
Beautiful.
It will change everything.
Beautiful. Speaking of good men, how do we reach you? How do we contact you?
Yeah. So you're always got Instagram open at uncivilized_Dave. You can shoot me an email at dave@manuncivilized.com. We've always got events that we're hosting here in Colorado for Uncivilized, and we've got free public men's groups all around the country, a couple globally as well through our nonprofit Project Uncivilized. So if you are looking for other good men in your life, or you want to build a group that will bring other good men into your life, reach out to us, let us know. Got tons of free resources that help you get started and keep you on the path. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come jam today, Phil. It was a pleasure. Very excited about it and looking forward to doing it again, hopefully.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great. I love it. All right, man.
Talk to you soon, bud.